Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured, why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description, and in every episode description, I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say, I'm watching so-and-so show. And then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it. And that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episode 8 of FX and Hulu's Reservation Dogs, entitled Send It. Look, this was the episode that I've been waiting for all season. Like, I felt like we got a lot of episodes like this one that kind of like showcase everything the show does well multiple times last season. This season, while still great, has largely left me without that feeling of like, God damn, that was a good fucking episode. Like, I had that multiple times last season, particularly during the back half, where it felt like every episode was an incredible one week to week. And I just kind of feel like the episodes have been good, but not that like kind of like blowing me away kind of level of good. But fortunately, that's not the case this week. You know, as I've been saying all season, the episodes that seem to have left a lot of the fandom wanting more, we're building up to some pretty big emotional moments, and we saw that in this episode this week. You know, what made this episode really great was that it hit on all the things that the show does well. Like I said at the top, it was hilarious, it was moving, and it left us with no shortage of either emotion. Like, we got a good bit of like moving stuff, heartwarming stuff, and we got a good bit of laughs. So this episode centers around breaking Maximus out of the mental hospital. I'm sure all of you recall the Maximus episode. I want to say it was episode 3. It was 2 or 3, in which we learned that we learned what happened to Maximus and that he was in a mental hospital. We learned that when he gets picked up at the end. This week, the episode opens with Big questioning both the Res Dogs and the Indian Mafia about something involving a bus. We don't know. After everyone else tells Big they ain't talking, Willie Jack breaks down and hits us with a story. So, Willie Jack was at an elder's breakfast, despite not being an elder, because of her, apprenticeship situation with Fixico. At the breakfast, Fixico and Irene, they tell Willie Jack about Maximus. But of note here, which this was lost on me in the moment, but it came back to great effect later, they refer to him as Chaban, which was the name that we saw him wanting to be called in the flashback episode about them, which was 4 or 5. And the one gym teacher who I felt seemed very much like Big, but that would make Big significantly older than Maximus. He was telling that coach that, you know, he first called him Maximus and he corrected him to Chaban. So that's what Irene and Fixico call him in this scene. And as the breakfast ends, Fixico seems to be going to the bathroom or something, and we see him put his hand on the table, and he has a heart attack, which we don't see. Prompts Willie Jack to start a mission to kidnap Maximus from the mental hospital so he and Fixico can reconcile before/if Fixico dies. So the heist crew forms, led by Kenny Boy, of all people, who insists upon being called various names, all of which start with Uncle. He's gonna drive the getaway bus. Of note, when the crew boards the bus, the show is playing the new Rolling Stones song, Angry. And the only reason I recognized it is because I heard the other day, like literally like 3 or 4 days ago, that they had a new album coming out. And I'm like, fuck, Jagger's got to be like 108 years old. But curiosity got the best of me. And I was curious, like, what kind of rock song a bunch of, like, centenarians would make. So I'm like, let me give it a listen. And that's how I recognize it in this scene. It legit came out, like, a week ago, if that. So this was, like, a real last minute kind of like, yo, throw that Rolling Stone song on over the bus scene. Like, I don't know, something, maybe, like, an editor really likes it or something. I don't know. But, yeah, like, that was a new Rolling Stone song, and that shit just came out. So, and we all, obviously, this episode was filmed a long time ago. Finished a long time ago, so apparently they still were tweaking something with that episode within the past few days. Let's see, where was I? But, oh, there I am. On the bus drive to the mental hospital, Allura and Willie Jack talk about loss, and Willie Jack expresses that she's worried about Fixico and didn't have enough time with him. And they agree to be there for each other if that person is the first to go. So, like, Willie Jack tells Allura, like, if you're the first to go, I'll be there for you. Allura says the same thing to Willie Jack. And once they arrive at the hospital, we then hear the plan. So, here's the start of the plan. Cheese has blueprints which he drew himself by hand because he does not have a printer for the other fucking hospital. So, he's going to tag along with Allura and Jackie to cut the phone line. I thought that was a funny aspect of the mission, too, in 2023. Like, what is that supposed to do, really? Like, if they need to use the phone after you've cut the phone line, they're just going to reach in their pocket and pull out their iPhone and use it for whatever they need to use it for. So, I don't know. I thought that was an interesting part of the plan, but I think it just shows, it's Bear obviously came up with this plan. He probably came up with it after, like, I don't know, watching, like, a Jason Bourne movie or some shit. It was like, we got to cut the phone line. White Steve and Bone Thug Dog are gonna say they have a tour scheduled with the manager to distract the front desk while Willie Jack and Bear sneak in and find Maximus. Now that's just the plan, but a lot of great stuff happens on this bus as well. So first, Cheese correcting Bear's grammar, that was great. Willie Jack and I and Bear's frustration with having to be corrected like that. Willie Jack saying that Kitty Boy and Ansel can't come in the hospital because they look half crazy and would just be asked to stay. That was like one of the coldest roasts they had on there. And then the camera cuts to Ansel looking like he looks like. A lot of great banter in this scene. What I didn't like, and I'm not being critical here because this comment is pretty much entirely tongue-in-cheek, but why the fuck do the India Mafia get to be Res Dogs now? Like, I don't know, like, they didn't earn that shit. Like, Jackie's been rolling for a while, undeservedly, I might add. But the other ones, they ain't done shit. They ain't done nothing to deserve being part of the crew. Have they even apologized for beating up Bear in season 1? Like, nah, man. Like, they don't get to be part of the crew, man. Like, we've seen White Steve, but White Steve ain't really interacted with the Res Dogs, like, to that degree. And then Bone Thug Dog, like, that motherfucker, he barely even been in this shit. So, like, I don't like them being added to the crew. But like I said, mostly tongue-in-cheek. I don't really give a shit. It was a cute thing at the end. Like, it was a nice little moment. Oh, they were beefing at the beginning and now they made up. It very much had a series finale feel to it. If I didn't know that there was 2 more episodes, I don't know. Anyway, once the plan's in motion, White Steve and Bone Thug Dog, dressed like Reservoir Dogs extras, actually do a Reservoir Dogs bit that I wouldn't have liked if they hadn't made it funny with the Don't Say Brown line and then him calling him Mr. Dog. I thought that was pretty good. But yeah, I'm like, when they're walking up, I'm like, in my notes, I'm like, oh, some Reservoir Dog shit. And then they do the Mr. White thing. And I'm like, okay, this was intentionally some Reservoir Dog shit. Oh, and then White Steve handing her his business card is like handwritten bullshit on the back of like a catfish rewards card. They had like 6 punches already on it and shit. Hilarious. Everything goes smoothly with the breakout, more so than they imagined. The only person met with a surprise was me when I realized right before Bear comes to the realization, I realized, I'm like, are they, like, right before whatever moment it was where they're like, does anyone know what he looks like? I was like, oh shit, Bear doesn't know that Chabon is Maximus. Like, he doesn't even know that this is the guy from episode 3. So that was me that was a surprise that came to me in this episode. And yeah, so Bear didn't know they were looking for Maximus, but Bear recognizes his name from the chart outside of his room. He's like, hey, this is the guy we're looking for. And when they find Maximus, he continues to be stubborn, as the elder men have been all season. when it comes to being honest with their feelings and showing vulnerability with the people they care about in order to reconcile. And I've been saying all season, my favorite thing about this show is learning about the culture and the way the old men behave and how stark contrast it is with how the kids behave has been really engaging stuff for me. I've really enjoyed watching that. So it's not surprising that Maximus is still hanging on to the beef with Fixico, which, side note, is both of their last names. Another thing I learned in this episode. Oh, so his first name is Old Man and his last name is Fixico. Okay. But Maximus doesn't want to see him. He waves them off dismissively, like, fuck out of here. Like, that one of those waves. And then Willie Jack then proceeds to, deservedly so, shame him and all of the other elders not in attendance for being so stubborn they're willing to let their loved ones die without reconciling. And then mentions that she'd give anything to be able to talk to Daniel again. And this convinces Maximus to go, and that's when we learn he's there voluntarily, which is why I said the plan went too well. He only gets brought back when he gets off of his meds and becomes a problem for himself and others. That's what happened. Like I said, episode 3, whichever episode that was. Bear asked him to pretend they broke him out, which he, of course, agrees to do. But the bus literally fucking explodes not too long after. I just wrote what the fuck in my notes. We end up back at everyone being interrogated by Big, which by this point I completely forgot that they were being interrogated by Big. And we see him talking to Kenny Boy. And Kenny Boy decides that he essentially wants to take responsibility and take the fall for the kids. And he talks about them being a community and showing up and being there for each other. And all while he's talking about community and being there for each other and showing up, we're treated to like this wonderful shot/moment of the camera panning across all of the kids and the crying elders. We see Irene crying, and then the camera peers into the hospital, like peeks around the corner into the hospital room, and we see Fixico and Maximus sitting in there together, and we come in for a close shot of Fixico, and it's just a great moment. You know, I often hype up, in this moment and specifically I hyped up, you know, some of these obvious inevitable moments that shows are clearly setting up, and I think it's going to be some sort of epic conversation, and that scene was the opposite of what I expected, but it was perfect. Like, just Maximus and Fixico sitting there in silence because shit, he's there, like nothing else needs to be said. It was a beautiful moment, and all of the tears outside. Great episode, man. What a great episode. And then the icing on the cake, we're treated to another awesome credit sequence. What the fuck is that? Credit scene. If you haven't seen it, I won't talk about it, but go back and watch it, because I want to talk about it, but like I said, I try to not. This is one of the things where I don't want to assume you guys saw it. Like, the videos are spoilers, but I assume you watched the episode. But the credit scene doesn't come for, like, you have to like fast forward through the credits to get to it. So it's like it's maybe like a good 30 seconds in, right? So a lot of you guys might not have seen it, so I don't want to spoil it. But it's great. I won't talk about it, but go back and watch it. Absolutely fucking worth it. If it weren't for the fact that I know Allura still needs to resolve things with her dad, I'd say that this felt like a series finale almost. I said that earlier. It was a perfect ending to the episode, but also perfect ending to the show, right down to, and when I say it, I'm talking about the credit scene, right down to the moment that Willie Jack has right before the credit scene ends. So, really good stuff. Like I said, it felt very much like a finale. Like, if I didn't know that there was more left, you'd think that it was. But we have 2 more left. I absolutely can't wait for them. And until next week, peace.